Are librarians next on the Republicans' target list? We're going to discuss that and more with our new TYT national correspondent, Matthew Sheffield. And Matthew would know better than most because he used to be part of the right wing. In fact, he set up some rather large organizations and media outlets for them, but found his way while writing a book about the movement, realized they're wrong. So that's a hell of a conclusion. And then he worked at Salon and The Hill, and now he's with us at TYT. Matthew, let's start with Banana Republics first, though. So I hear from the right wing all the time, oh my God, I can't believe they're investigating Donald Trump. It's like a Banana Republic. Is that true?
Well, it is not true because, as a matter of fact, if you look at countries across the world, there are tons of countries, major industrialized nations that everybody's heard of it, and America does tons of business with, that have jailed and investigated their leaders. I mean, you've got Japan, you've got Italy, you've got France. I mean, just tons of places all over the world, and people. And the common denominator is people were accused of committing the crime and they had their day in court, and some of them lost. So that's the mark of a stable and honest government. It's not a banana republic.
Yeah, it's amazing how they flip the truth on its head so consistently and so well, and get their basically their followers to believe them. Because I mean, of course, the point of your story, people can find on tyt.com/stories, is upholding the rule of law for everyone is what you do in a democracy and not a banana republic. And in a banana republic, the elites are above the law, and they can break the law anytime they like. So even Israel holds their leaders accountable, right?
Yeah, that's right. They had one prime minister who actually just recently, a former prime minister who came out of jail. He came out of prison, and he, and then they've got another guy right now, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is having a trial for corruption and bribery. And I mean, certainly people are talking about it a lot in Israel, but the reality is, you do the crime, you do the time. That's how democracy works. That's how republics work, and regular republics.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, they already imprisoned a former prime minister on the Netanyahu case, which is a different case. Honestly, I was shocked. I mean, look, Israel is not the standard bearer for rule of law when it comes to the occupation, but in their own court system and their own politics, they're actually pretty good about corruption. Like the Netanyahu case is honestly like 1% of the corruption that our politicians do. And still, Israel thought it was too much, which is to their great credit. And same is true of all the countries that you listed. That's what we're trying to do with our correspondents: bring you things that are actually true, as opposed to the mainstream media just saying right wingers say that if you hold the elite accountable, it's a banana republic. I don't care what right wingers say. What is actually true? So, which then leads us to librarians. Okay. Why on God's green earth are you attacking librarians now?
Well, it all goes back to the larger right-wing war on science and on secular learning. That's really what it comes down to, because they've always had it out for science educators ever since the Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species. But in the latest reincarnation of this nonsense, and they've literally come and done these things every few decades. It's like they have another iteration of this. But the latest one now is that they think that children should not be allowed to learn that racism exists or existed. Like some of them are even complaining about teaching kids that slavery existed. And so and then of course they're throwing in trying to basically ban any sort of acknowledgement that there are kids out there who are LGBTQ. And and because basically their goal is to shove everybody back into the closet, whether that's if you're a sexual minority or whether you are a non-Christian. of one stripe or another, they don't want you to be a part of the public square. And so they are literally going to librarians and threatening them. So in Idaho, for instance, the right-wing activists there, they literally were showing up at library meetings with guns and saying, "We don't want you to have these books in the library." And the library said, "Well, actually, we don't have any of those books in the library, and we have no plans to purchase them because nobody's asked for us to buy any of these books." And the guy said, "Okay, well, you need to explicitly ban that you will never purchase these books. Guarantee you will never purchase these books." And they're sitting there, and they had so many people showing up at these library meetings with guns in their holsters and whatnot that they literally had to move the library meetings to a building owned and controlled by the local police. That's how insane these people.
Matt, I'm going to ask an unrelated question, but it's adjacent to this topic first, and I'm going to come back to LGBTQ and race issues. When you were in the right wing, did you guys have a good belly laugh over how dumb the mainstream media is and how you can get them to call anything even just by bullying them? Because, I mean, look, if we had a fair press in this country, they would say, yeah, the right wing has lost its goddamn mind. They're attacking librarians now. But they don't say that. They just say, oh, the right wing says that they care about parents and children, and that's why they had to attack the librarians. So a genuine question, did you guys believe the stuff you said about, oh my God, the media is run by liberals and they're oppressing us, or were you guys secretly laughing your ass off behind the scenes at how you bullied them?
I think it was a mix. So I'd say most of the activists that I worked with, they actually believe that the media are biased against them. They actually believe it. And, and here's the thing, like on a certain level, the media is like corporate centrist Democrat to some degree or another. I think there is some truth to that statement, but the reality is, of course, they're not a progressive media. They're not, and you can call it liberal or progressive. They're not that. And I did have that. I did try over the years to try to get people to understand, look, they're not out there supporting, it's obvious they're not supporting Bernie Sanders. So, what is this? And I never really got people to answer that. It's like, for them, there is no difference between anyone, to the left of Liz Cheney. Everyone is a communist, regardless of if it's Joe Biden or AOC or Karl Marx himself. Everyone's a communist.
Yeah, that sounds right. And by the way, I totally agree. I think the media is largely, at this point, what they would call centrist, what we would call corporate Democrats. And that's because the centrist Democrats have become the most pro-corporate wing of any party. So when I was growing up, the media was more balanced, not in terms of right wing or left wing. No, they hated both of us. They always have. But they were more balanced in that they would go corporate Republican, corporate Democrat. We love you, we love you, we love you. John McCain, Joe Lieberman. Hey, you guys agreed. Tax cuts for the rich, more wars. Yay! Now there's more populist Republicans, and that makes the corporate marketing department called cable news more jittery, right? And so that's where why they lean towards corporate centrists. All right, Democrats. All right, back to the libraries. So LGBTQ issues. The right wing says, no, we don't hate gay people at all. We don't want to take away their rights, but don't ever talk about them. They're disgusting. So, okay, again, you were in the right wing. Which one is it? Because again, I look at, if you went on cable news right now, I think they would yell at you on CNN and say, no, Republicans don't hate gays. That's an outrageous thing to say.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a mix. I'd say there's like, so one thing that I think a lot of progressives don't know about the right in the United States is that the average Republican voter is actually a lot less radical than the DC Republicans. The DC Republicans, so the Republican elites, they're they're much more radical. They love subsidizing billionaires. They actively want to do that. they actively want to, criminalize, same-sex marriage, like, or having a same-sex relationship. Like the DC Republicans want that stuff, a lot of them, and so and there's a small subset of those DC Republicans, and those are the ones that you see invited on cable TV a lot, the most. And that is these people who they have no constituency. Like these are the people who were like anti-Trump. They were the never Trumps who went in and were like, okay, just kidding. Actually, we'll support Trump. That's who I'm talking about. Those people don't. Most of them don't hate lesbian and gay and transgender people. Most of them don't. But that's like a very small percentage of the Republican elites. Most of the Republican elites are like Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz, and they do hate gay people, and they are, I mean, they hate it when you call them this, but they are Christo-fascists. That's what I call them. And for them, they want it so that anyone who you can have full rights if you are white or Christian or straight. And if you're not one of those three, then you can't have rights. So if you can have one of those three, then you can have rights. But if you don't have any of those three, then screw you. And that's basically the role that they see for themselves. And and demographically, I mean, here's the interesting thing is that when you look at polls, basically the percentage of people who are willing to vote for these insane, intolerant ideas, it shrinks and shrinks every year because younger people are not interested in it. The only people, generationally speaking, that Donald Trump won in 2020 was people older than 65. And so basically they know they have a losing hand. And my book that I was originally writing that took me out of the right was basically me saying, look, guys, you've got to compromise here on the Christian supremacist stuff. You've got to compromise on this billionaire welfare stuff because the younger people, they don't want it. And it's time to change and let people serve the public because supposedly that's what you want. And basically I got to the point where I was like, well, they don't want to serve the public. They want to serve their corporate masters and their religious masters. That's what they want. And
so Matt, yeah, we're massively out of time, but I can't help it. I got to ask one last question. So is it? I agree with you that some portion, maybe about half the Republicans, are not irredeemable. I think that, and why do I think that? It's not just being hopeful. It's not the Biden kumbaya nonsense. No, I've seen the polling. Their positions are actually progressive. They just don't know it, right? They think like, oh, they love Medicare and Social Security, and they think those are right-wing programs that are, that big government would screw up. They just don't realize, no, that's big government programs, right? They just don't know, right? But half of them are totally irredeemable. It's the 28% number that you see in every poll that hates immigrants, doesn't want to teach about race, hates gay people, etc., right? But for the half that are redeemable, how can we possibly reach them and get them to understand that everyone has lied to them?
Yeah, well, and I mean, honestly, that is the question that should be on the minds of every Democratic leader in America. That they should be thinking about how to do that at all times, because, yeah, basically, the percentage of Republicans who don't buy into all this, ludicrous nonsense, they actually think that Democrats are the extreme ones, even though even the most extreme, quote unquote, Democrats out there like AOC or Bernie Sanders, would basically be just kind of a run of the mill, Labor Party member in the UK or something like that. So, but they don't know that, and because the right wing, the only way that they can win elections is to not let people know the truth, and then tell them the opposite. So, if you listen to right-wing media, they are constantly talking about the radical left, the radical left, the radical left. And like they're telling people that Black Lives Matter is going to come and burn down their house, and Antifa is going to throw fire bombs at grandma. Like that's what they're telling people. And the reality, you've just got to present the facts to people and tell them. Like that's where the audience can really come in and do something that us as commentators, we're known quantities as progressives and on the left of center. But if you're, friends or your family and they got sucked into this stuff, because I mean, there's a lot of people out there who just kind of, they turn on the radio because they got a long commute or something, and they start listening to this crap, and nobody lets them know that it's nonsense. So that's honestly where the audience can actually probably be the best factor in all of it.
All right, Matt Sheffield, new TYT national correspondent. Everybody check out the stories at tyt.com/stories. Matt, thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Cenk.